Hello, everybody. All right. Welcome to the Mikestand. Today, of course, is Wednesday, September the 17th, 2025. Um, hopefully, everybody's having a good week thus far. Of course, this is Hump Day, meaning that, of course, time for us to get over the hump of the week, as it were. Now, of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. Um, you know, friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So earlier today, of course, I was watching some cartoons. You know, saw one of the, as I'm working my way through June of February 1941 in regards to cartoon watching, including watching Quiet Place, which is a Popeye cartoon that featured Popeye and his Pappy, in which Pappy was hung over but tried to pass it off as being sick, as Popeye to keep everything quiet. Of course, saw some Looney Tunes, saw some, Warner Brothers classics, including the one of the first one shot Looney Tune of the Haunted Mouse. Saw, of course, a Sniffles cartoon, Sniffles Bells the Cat. Saw an animated Annex from Fleischer as well. Well, let's see. Now we're almost at the 3-minute mark. I guess it's time for me to talk about what's on tap for tonight. So I got a couple articles from Bounding into Comics to go over tonight. One in regards to the Splinter Cell animated series that's airing on Netflix, and then we have also a Dragon Ball Daima story as well. Among the things they're talking about here include Netflix Splinter Cell Death Watch will rip the spine out of the source material, quote unquote, but and quote unquote, keep the brain and the heart. And then Akira Toriyama's former editor said Dragon Ball Super should have been about Vegeta, I recall. So, plus, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap-up, get caught up on last night's NXT Homecoming, as well as look ahead to tonight's Dynamite, as both WWE and AEW, tonight, AEW not only will be airing Dynamite, but they'll also be airing Collision as well right afterwards. As these will be the go home episodes of Dynamite and Collision before this Saturday's All Out pay-per-view, as of course, and then we'll wrap things up with this day in Meets history. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Go ahead and get started then. And again, to both my, of course, to both my YouTube and my Rumble viewers, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people to engage. I'd appreciate it. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions the best of my ability. So let's get into the articles here. This first one is something. All right, so here's the first article we're going over tonight. All right, so Netflix Splinter Cell Death Watch will, in quote unquote, rip the spine out of the source material, unquote, but quote, keep the brain and the heart, unquote, article by Nerdigans Inc., published September 16th, which of course was yesterday. So Sam Fisher in there, who's voiced by Lee Schreiber, goes dark in Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Death Watch 2025. All right, so on the one hand, Netflix's upcoming Splinter Cell Death Watch will see Sam Fisher dusting off his night vision goggles for the first time in over a decade. But on the other hand, like most video game adaptations, it will also play a bit fast and loose with Ubisoft's original series canon. Following its initial announcement in July 2020, Netflix and Ubisoft would maintain radio silence on the animated series development for the next 5 years before finally declassifying its first trailer this past August 21st, part of this year's edition of the annual Anime New York City convention. Per Ubisoft's official synopsis, Splinter Cell Death Watch finds Sam, who's voiced here by Lee Schreiber, who voiced Kingpin and Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, quote, drawn back into the field when a wounded young operative, Zinnia McKenna, who's voiced here by Kirby Howell Baptiste, who played Dr. May Turner in Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, seeks his help, unquote. Quote, despite the agent's visibly older appearance, Fisher is still as stealthy and dangerous as ever, unquote. Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Death Watch official teaser trailer, disclosing additional information on Sam's return at the Annecy International Animation Film Festival 2025. Ubisoft Film and Television Development producer Carl Tamakloe told Variety that the Spec Ops franchise's next mission, Spec Ops next mission, would explore the way warfare has evolved in the 20 plus years since the original Splinter Cell released in 2002. Quote, since 2002, the world has evolved, and that is something that we wanted to integrate from the start, unquote. The Ubisoft Film and Television Development associate producer told Variety, quote, technology has turned old strategies into hybrid warfare with fake news, energy challenges, and corporate involvement, unquote. Need to go off camera here for a moment. I'll be right back. But I will put some music on for you guys while I'm gone. All right, I'm back. So let's get back to the. And again, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, getting back to the article here. Quote, it's a whole new world that Sam has to navigate in our project, unquote, he acknowledged. Quote, we also wanted to turn this US-centered saga into a European-centric thriller, which is why we chose the road trip format to tell the eight-episode story. It felt like a good way to immerse our viewers into known settings and a brand new adventure, unquote. Curiously, despite the series' relative popularity, one piece of intel that they did not choose to highlight in all their in small quote trailer debut hype is the fact that, as detailed by French news publication L'Info Tout Court, quote, Splinter Cell Death Watch is canon to the rest of the video game franchise, unquote. Quote, set in 2025, Sam left the command of Echelon 4, unquote, added the outlet, as machine translated by DeepL. Quote, now a solitary farmer in Poland, he will have to return to service in what is sold as a road trip across Europe. In parentheses, the animators have also faithfully recreated Polish and Danish cities like Copenhagen, in parentheses, but above all, an adult dark thriller, unquote. In light of Ubisoft's reluctance to highlight Death Watch's place in the overall franchise, showrunner Derek Kolstad was recently asked by IGN if he could clarify whether or not the Netflix animated series was actually canon. To which he replied that while he couldn't give a confident answer, Ubisoft's approach towards their collaboration suggested it was. Quote, I hope so, unquote, he told the outlet's Jim Vejvoda, quote, in brackets, Ubisoft's got a stranglehold on their IP for good measure because they've got some of the best titles. But there were some things that along the way, in brackets, where they were like, in smaller quotes, don't do that, on smaller quote. And I'm like, in quote, why? And they're like, in quote, smaller quote here, hey, we got other plans, unquote. Again, quote, again, I only get to peer behind part of the curtain for what they're thinking, in brackets, in the long run, unquote. The John Wick franchise creator noted, quote, but for what I want to do with the anime and talking in the future of any other spinoff they want to do, if it's going like in small, this fits the mold. Providing further insight into Death Watch's potential canon status, Kolstad later revealed that Death Watch would, in fact, be making some changes to the events of 2005 Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, and not only that, but that he himself had a generally malleable view of the series' original narrative. Quote, even though we have elements of that game referenced there, it's hopefully small enough and the changes are minute enough, brackets, the fans won't be upset, unquote, said the John Wick franchise creator, quote, but the other thing you have to look at with an adaptation, especially when it's the first time in this medium, you have to rip the spine out of the source material, unquote, he continued. Quote, keep the brain and the heart, entertain the soul, and do your best to actually build it into something that works, unquote. Produced by Ubisoft Film and Television and featuring animation from Studio Sun Creature and Faust, Splinter Cell's first animated mission will be penned by Colstard and helmed by co-directors Guillaume Doucet and Felician Colme Dage. All eight episodes of Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Death Watch are set to emerge from the shadows exclusively on Netflix this October 14th. So 1 week after my 50th birthday. All right, so there we go with that one. Oh, let me get back to the... Oh, wait, no. All right, so now getting ready to move on to... of course, a friendly reminder to everybody, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the question best of my ability. That, of course, goes for both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers. So, with that being said, let's get ready to move on to the next piece of niche history, or not niche, I'm sorry, the next article here. Next article, kind of jumping ahead of myself here a little bit. Akira Toriyama's former editor says, in small quote, Dragon Ball Super, unsmall quote, should have been a Vegeta story. In small quote, Daima is messy, to say the least. Article by Spencer McCulley, published today. So let's see what we got here. So, in lobbing a Molotov cocktail into the ever-raging flames of the series fandom infighting, Akira Toriyama's early Shonen Jump editor Kazuhiko Torishima has admitted to having a less than negative opinion on both the recent Dragon Ball Daima and the non-Vegeta centric Dragon Ball Super. Torishima, who oversaw the late mangaka's entire Dr. Slump run and the first half of his work on Dragon Ball, up until the the Saiyan saga, before serving as Shonen Jump's editor-in-chief from 1996 to 2001, shared his criticisms regarding the current state of the Shonen Battle franchise during his and Dragon Quest creator Yuji Horiji's latest segment for the Yubo and Masahiro Mashirito's Koso Koso broadcasting station radio show, as hosted by the pair every fourth Saturday of the month, in service of sharing their opinions on the latest goings-ons of the Japanese video game and manga industries. As machine translated during the original broadcast by YouTube's auto translation caption system, in parentheses, at present, the archive version of said broadcast does not allow for closed captioning. Torishima first took aim at the current state of the Dragon Ball Super manga, declaring that the series was suffering due to series steward, in parentheses, and Toriyama's hand-picked successor, Toyo Taro's lack of talent. Quote, Toyo Taro, and in brackets here, Dragon Quest, The Adventure of Dai, the Hero Avan, and the Demon King of Hellfire, mangaka Yusaku Shibata, are bad at manga. The basics aren't up to par. Quote, the people in charge of editing these manga, in brackets Victory Uchida for Dragon Ball Super, unbracketed, don't understand why the pieces are divided, how the eyes are guided, how the angles are handled in the information spread, and so they can't check it. Once it's finished and the pictures are in, they think it's a manga, unquote. From there, he turned his attention towards Goku and the company's anime outings, first declaring, quote, it would have been better to do a Vegeta story than Dragon Ball Super, unquote. And then, quote, Dragon Ball Daima is a messy anime. And I'm using messy as a substitute for the actual, obviously there's a couple of stars in the middle of the word there, so indicating it's a very naughty word. In brackets, literally, Daima ka ga kuso anime. All right, as we continue on here. It should be noted that despite Torishima having served as the legendary manga's editor for the early half of his Shonen Jump career, he and Toriyama had a contentious relationship, to say the least. Per a recap of Shonen Jump editors, Yu Kondo, who oversaw Dragon Ball from the Saiyan saga up to the Perfect Cell saga, Fuyuto Takeda, who worked with Toriyama from the Cell game saga up to the Jocko the Patrolman, and Torishima March appearance on Yubo and Mashirito's Koso broadcasting station, as provided by Twitter user at Venix. And I need to step away from the camera for a moment, but I will put some music on to entertain you guys while I'm gone. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. So let's see if anybody's making any comments here as of yet. Again, I encourage anybody, if anything catches your attention on either YouTube or Rumble, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, anyways, getting back to the article here. Quote, during an especially intense period between the end and start of the year, Toriyama found himself having to work simultaneously on Dragon Ball and a one-shot episode. To make matters worse, Jump required color chapters to be supplemented 2 weeks in advance, forcing authors to work on 2 episodes in parallel. At that time, Toriyama was also suffering from tendinitis and claimed he could no longer draw. Kondo, who was working with him, realized how serious the situation was and decided to speak with Torishima. The 3 of them met at a cafe to discuss the possibility of adjusting the schedule or canceling one of the 2 projects. During the meeting, Torishima, fully aware of the difficulty, handed Toriyama a pencil and asked him to write his name. When Toriyama managed to do it, Torishima replied, quote, see, you can draw, unquote, putting him in a tough spot when it came to continuing to refuse. The only thing is that writing a name, yeah, for something as simple as just writing your name, okay, so maybe he seems okay, but if you're constantly doing something over time, sometimes you can get tired out, you can get worn out, and maybe his medical issues were making it to where he was like it was taking it was basically taking more of a toll on him. Yeah, a one-off situation like that wouldn't necessarily prove anything. Despite his frustration, Toriyama accepted and completed both works on time. Torishima comments that for him, it was mainly a psychological matter. If Toriyama hadn't been able to write his own name, he was ready to give up and tell Kondo to let it go. It was a gamble, but in the end, it worked. Surprising outcome. All right, so there we go with that one. So we're done with the we're done with the articles now. Let me see what time it is here. See, 33 minutes, and I know we got quite a bit to go over in terms of the wrestling wrap up. So, let me see. Actually, let me see if I can find at least one more quickie article. Maybe I can find one more that kind of quickie article to kind of. Let's see. Okay, well that one is okay. So that one definitely will do tomorrow. So we'll have another episode of Indie Comic Showcase tomorrow. So that'll be something there. Let me check the other. Let's see. La 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 la. La 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 la. Let's see here. Alright, so nothing there either. Alright, so it looks like we'll get ready to move on to a wrestling wrap up then. Doesn't seem like there's much else to go over here. And we'll get ready to talk a little bit about. So, look back to, of course, we'll look back to last night's NXT Homecoming, as well as looking ahead to tonight's Dynamite and Collision. So with that, on last night's NXT Homecoming from Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida, with Booker T and Vic Joseph on commentary. Before the first match, of course, there was Triple H had come out and went over the history of NXT, particularly from Full Sail University, and then talked about how kind of teased the idea of him coming back and taking over running the show. That, of course, brought out Shawn Michaels to kind of counter that, and then you had Steve Regal William Regal make his return to NXT to kind of let's do this in War Games, and then of course you had the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair come out and talk about how the women were the backbone of NXT in preparation for their upcoming tag match, which would then, of course, lead into that said tag match in which Bliss and Flair retained the WWE Women's Tag Team titles over the Cullings, Izzy Dame, and Tatum Paxley, who had won the right to challenge for the title on last week's episode of NXT. So, Bliss and Flair would retain the titles in just over 11 minutes. Then moving on to the next match, current TNA World Champion Trick Williams and his best friend Carmelo Hayes, with the help of The Miz, as the Miz teaming with Carmelo Hayes on SmackDown right now as Mello Don't Miz. Defeated DIY's Johnny Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano. Then Ethan Page successfully retained the NXT North American Championship over Tyler Breeze. Tyler Breeze making his return to NXT last week after, I believe, like a 3 or 4 year absence. Then in the main event saw main roster stars Rhea Ripley, Stephanie Valkyrie, and Lyra Valkyria. In the case of both Valkyria and and Valkyria wrestling for the second straight night. They were able to defeat Fatal Influence of NXT Women's Champion JC Jane, along with Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix, with, of course, Rhea Ripley getting the pinfall, I believe, on. I believe it might actually no, it was actually on Jasmine Nix, I believe. So hitting the Riptide on Jasmine Nix to get the pinfall. Of course, Stephanie Valkyria wrestling 2 days. Now, Lyra Valkyria was actually replacing. Originally, the match was set to be Fatal Influence against Rhea Ripley, Stephanie Valkyria, and Tiffany Stratton. But Tiffany Stratton, due to how she landed during her match with Jade Cargill on last Friday's SmackDown, was not medically cleared to engage in the match. So Lyra Valkyria stepped in for her. So, anyways, now to kind of look a little bit now. Now let's go to the go back and look at tonight's Dynamite as well as Collision, as I believe both shows. So the 311th episode of Dynamite, September to Remember, airing tonight from the Canada Life Place in London, Ontario, Canada. The night is sets up Roderick Strong looking to get some revenge from after his tag match, after falling short in the tag match to Jon Moxley and Daniel Garcia on this past Saturday's Collision. Will be taking on Jon Moxley in a match to determine the third participant in the three-way match for the AEW Unified Championship. Beast Mordos of LFI will be taking on CMLL's Mascara Dorado, with the winner joining Kazuchika Okada and Konosuke Takeshita in that three-way match. And then we'll have three matches to determine who will challenge AEW World Tag Team Champions Broditos in the first eliminator match. Team of Top Flight of the Martin Brothers, Dante and Darius Martin, will be taking on the Don Callis family members of Josh Alexander and Hechicero. Jet Speed's Speedball Mike Bailey and the Jet Kevin Knight will be taking on the matriarchy of Kill Switch and Kip Sabian. And in the third eliminator match, the Young Bucks of Matt and Nick Jackson will be taking on the Bang Bang Gang's Austin Gunn and Juice Robinson. The No Holds Barred match, Tekla is set to take on Queen Aminata, and then Bobby Lashley will be taking on Tor Leona in what is believed to be the main event. Now, of course, that's for the that's for Dynamite. I believe I saw the event thing earlier here. I was reviewing this stuff. I believe Collision will also be on tonight. Normally, Collision's on Saturdays, but I think because of the fact, of course, this Saturday they're going to have the All Out pay-per-view. Let's see. So yeah, tonight's Collision will be live on TBS, but as of yet, they have yet to announce any matches for that. So now, to kind of review what's going on for All Out this Saturday, as these will be the Go Home, Dynamite, and Collision shows. Take a look at what will be going down this Saturday from the Scotchbank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. and I know we mentioned this the other day. It looks like Eddie Kingston will possibly be making his return from after being out with an injury to answer the challenge of Big Bill. The AEW Women's World Title will be on the line in a four-way match as Toni Storm is set to defend the title against Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and the Triangle of Madness's Tekla. Christian Cage and Adam Copeland team up, reunite from their days as Edge and Christian to take on FTR of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler with Stokely in their corner. In a six-man tag match, the Hurt Syndicate of MVP, Shelton Benjamin, and Bobby Lashley will be answering the challenge of Ricochet and the Gates of Agony of Bishop Khan and Toa Leona. Of course, Toa Leona set to take on Bobby Lashley on tonight's Dynamite. Mercedes Moné is set to defend the TBS title against the first AEW Women's World Champion Riho. In a coffin match, Jon Moxley will be taking on Darby Allin. In a tables and tacks match, Mark Briscoe looks to get some in this very heated feud. Mark Briscoe will be taking on MJF, as MJF looks to get revenge on Briscoe for costing him the AEW World Title, while of course Briscoe looks to continue getting revenge for MJF, hiring out Gates of Agony and Ricochet to try to force Hangman Adam Page to give him a title shot without him giving up his gauntlet contract. In a three-way match for the AEW Unified title, Kazuchika Okada is set to defend against former international champion and current G1 Climax champion Konosuke Takeshita, and the winner of tonight's match between LFI's Beast Mordos and CMLL's Máscara Dorada. In a four-way ladder match for the AEW World Tag Team title, Brodito of Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito and Brody King will be set to answer the challenge of the three winners of tonight's eliminator matches between Top Flight and the Don Callis family members of Josh Alexander and Hechicero, Jet Speed, and Jet Speed and the Matriarchy, and then the Young Bucks and the Bang Bang Gang. And the main event for this Saturday's All Out will pit AEW World Champion Adam Page trying to fend off the challenge of TNT Champion Kyle Fletcher. All right, so that's all I got for the wrestling wrap-up. I'm going to need to go off camera here one more time for a moment, so I'll put some music on while I'm gone. I'm back. Sorry about all that. Anyways, so now we'll get ready to move on to this day in each history segment, as it were. Let me see now. As of 2014, 1995, 1955, and 2000. Alrighty then. So, well, with today being Wednesday, September the 17th, 2025, let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in each history. History! So, first off, I'm going to head back 70 years ago today. On this date, 70 years ago today, as soon as I find that. This date, 70 years ago today. Speedy Gonzales, who was earlier created by Bob McKinson, appears in a remodeled version in the Fritz Frayling cartoon Speedy Gonzales, produced by Warner Brothers Cartoons, that launches the character as a star of a long-running series. So on this date, 70 years ago today, Speedy Gonzales gets his own short series as produced by Warner Brothers Animation. Oh, there we go with that. All right, so getting ready to move on to the next piece of, we move up 40 years from there, up to the year of 1995. On this date in the year 1995, as soon as I pull that up, of course. Okay, from the Asheville Civic Center in Asheville, North Carolina, WCW held its Fall Brawl pay-per-view on this date 30 years ago today, back in 1995. Main event saw Hulk Hogan, Lex Luger, Randy Savage, and Sting defeat the Dungeon of Doom of course, Kamala, Meng, Shark, aka Earthquake, and Zodiac, aka Brutus Beefcake, with the Taskmaster in their corner in a War Games match. Arn Anderson defeated Ric Flair in a singles match. In a match for the WCW World Tag Team titles, Harlem Heat with Sister Sherry in their corner, Booker T and Stevie Ray, defeated a stud stable duo of Bunkhouse Buck and Dick Slater with Colonel Rob Parker in their corner. Diamond Dallas Page won the World Television title over the Renegade. Sergeant Craig Pittman defeated Cobra, and then in a match determined the number one contender to the WCW United States Champion Heavyweight title, Johnny B. Bad, defeated Brian Pillman. All right, so, and that's just 2 weeks after, of course, the premiere of WCW Monday Nitro, just to add on to that. So, now moving on to the next piece in each history, as we move up to the year 2010. On this date in the year 2010, as soon as I find that. The second season of A1 Pictures' Black Butler concludes on Japanese television on this date, 15 years ago today. So 15 years ago today, back on September 17, 2010, the second season of A1 Pictures' Black Butler includes on Japanese television. And finally, before I on this date in 2014, on this date in the year 2014, on this date in the year 2014, the 20th and final issue of Clone from Image Comics went on sale on this date back in 2014. It was, of course, 11 years ago. Sold for $2.99, with 28 pages. All right, so with that, I do thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Let me see. So tomorrow night we'll be doing another. We'll be looking at another article from Bleeding Fool in regards to Indie Comic Showcase by Chris Braley. Of course, we'll get all caught up on tonight on what happened on tonight's Dynamite and Collision, as well as looking ahead to tomorrow night's Impact and Ring of Honor, and then of course continue to look ahead to this Saturday's WrestlePalooza and WWE WrestlePalooza as being shown on ESPN, the first PLE on ESPN since WWE signed the streaming deal with them for the PLEs, and then also from Toronto, as we mentioned, AEW's All Out. Get caught up on all the latest in terms of we'll find out what happened on in the past on tomorrow's. And of course, don't forget this Sunday I'll be joined by the Metal from the Vomitorium. We'll be taking another trip down comics history lane, venturing back to June of 1940. This week we'll be focusing in on Prize Comics, both the company and the Prize Comics number 6, which of course will include Power Man, Storm Curtis, Black Owl, Jupiter the Master Magician, I believe. So, anyways, all that being said, I hope everybody, as I said, enjoyed the show. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.